Get started with the class today. Yeah, we have a recording. Welcome everyone to the first class of Java Level 1. I'm just going to start with sharing the slides and we can get started. I'm going to begin class with just some introductions because I know a lot of us are new and don't know each other. The recording will be available if you miss class, and Miss Hugh will be in charge of handing the links out. So I'm Jack. I'm going to be your instructor for this class. I've been teaching with Academy of Excellence for a long while now, so it's good to be back teaching another class. I'm going to be a rising fourth year at the University of Virginia, so I'm a college student, and I'm majoring in computer science and math. I'm going to go over these questions. So what drove me to learn Java and programming in general is I just saw my older brother do it, my parents do it, and it looked really fun. I wanted to get into it. At the time also, I think very common. A lot of people want to learn programming because of gaming. Do you want to make your own game? Things like that. Those are all kind of things that drove me to programming, and Java was my first language that I learned. Yeah, since then I've gone to other languages, I've done other things, but Java is still kind of has a sweet spot to me. So I'm very excited to teach the class. I want to go through everyone in the Zoom and have a brief introduction. If you could answer these questions. Do we have any volunteers? All right. Okay, Evan, I see you use Zoom to raise your hand.
Hello, my name is Evan. I go to John Paul Middle School. I'm in 6th grade, and I'm actually learning Java for an FTC competition, and otherwise just to know the language in case I need to use it somewhere, like maybe designing a website. And I've worked in HTML and Python before, so.
Cool, thank you, Evan. Would anyone else like to go now? I don't have volunteers. Oh, Tushar.
Hello, my name is Tushar. I'm in 8th grade. I go to Thomas W. Pyle. And what drives me to learn Java is learning a new language to code in, and FTC, like moving a robot. And I've had background in HTML and some Python.
Nice to meet you, Tushar. I'm going to keep seeing if we have volunteers. If not, I'll just go down the Zoom participant list. All right, how about Anne? Do you want to introduce yourself? If you're comfortable, if you feel more comfortable using chat, I'm fine with that as well. I see a couple of people have been putting that. Video is optional, although it is nice to see people's faces and see how you're doing. But if you don't feel comfortable, it's fine. And yeah, I'm flexible with whatever you guys want. So Bo, 7th grade, learn more about programming and have had block programming, HTML, and a little bit of Python. That's good. Let's see, Caden is also 5th grade, like Evan, FTC, and it's done a little bit of programming in school. Good to hear. Megan, 6th grade, had a little bit of Python experience and now moving on to Java. That's great. While these are coming in, I just want to say a couple of things. It's really great to see where everyone's coming from. I find it very interesting because I didn't learn programming until I started high school, 9th grade. And so I see so far everyone has earlier than me, which is great. And I see some people have had some prior programming experience. Python seems very common. And I do think Python is a great first language to learn. Java should hopefully be not too difficult. Java has some quirks where there's like a lot of what's called boilerplate code, where you just have a lot of stuff that you need to put onto the code for things to run. And it's going to look maybe really intimidating at first, but I promise once you kind of get used to it, get familiar with it, it's really not that scary. And in my opinion, there's some things I like about Java over Python. So hopefully we'll get to that. Also, so good question, Lucas. In the past, and what we've done is use Eclipse. And speaking of that, I'm actually going to have you guys go to 2 websites to download some files. And this is just because today is mostly going to be a setup class, and downloading and installing is going to take a while. So I want to get it started early. I see some things in chat. If you guys are familiar with other IDEs, already have them installed, feel free to use them, whether it's like VS Code or IntelliJ, whatever you want to use, feel free. I'm just going to warn you, I'm going to be using Eclipse, and I'm going to be showing how to use it as well. So if you want to follow on with me, I'm going to be using Eclipse, and I'm going to be going over how to install that today. But if you feel comfortable with something else, completely fine. You don't need to download Eclipse. Yeah. All right, so going over the links. So the first link I put into chat is something called the JDK, and I'll explain what that is later. But if you go to that page, you'll see this. And if you scroll down, you can choose your operating system and download one of these. I would say go with, if you're Windows, go with the EXE or the MSI, one of these two. So if you just click on the link, it should start downloading this onto your computer. And it's going to maybe give you a warning. My computer does. You want to just say keep. This is a safe file. You don't need to worry about that warning. Yeah. The second thing to download is on the second link I put into chat, and I can put the links into chat again. And that page, you want to scroll down, go with the first one, choose again your operating system. So Bo said, which one should I download? So if you're going with the JDK, I would go with either the EXE or the MSI, the second or third. The only difference is how you kind of run these after you've downloaded. And the zip just has an extra step. So to make it easier, I would go one of these two. So if you have a Mac, good question. I'm not as familiar with Mac. One thing that matters is whether you have an Intel chip or an Apple chip. So I believe if you have like the new Mac, that's going to have an Apple chip. Like if you have a very brand new, came out last year Mac, that's going to be an Apple chip, and you probably want to choose this one. If you have an Intel, then you want to choose this one. And if you're confused about which kind of chip that you have, I can maybe help debug that as well. but go with the DMG installer. And the difference is what kind of computer chip you have in your computer. This is the Apple chip, and this is the Intel chip. So for Mac, again, it's depends on the chip. So in general, I would go with the first one. Worst case, if it doesn't work, you can just download the other one. Shouldn't have too much of an issue. So the Eclipse is going to take a lot longer to download. The Eclipse is going to be a zip file. And so while we're going to go through class, if the download finishes, it's probably going to take a couple minutes. You can go ahead and unzip that as well. And the convenient way that we're installing Eclipse is that it's going to end up in just a single file, most likely, and a folder. And so if you want to delete this later on, you can just delete the folder and you'll get rid of everything that we're installing now. I see Deo said this can't be downloaded. Is it the first one or the second one? Is it the JDK or is it Eclipse? All right, no problem. Okay. So does anyone have any problems downloading these files? I just wanted to get it started now. I'm going to go over other things while it's running, and we'll go over installation and how to use these things later on today. Just in case, I'm going to send both links into chat again, in case you missed them. All right, so I don't see any questions in chat right now. Just to recap, in general policy, feel free to use chat if you have any questions. You don't have to worry about interrupting me. I'm going to be keeping an eye on chat, and whenever I see a question, whenever it's a good time, I'll stop and try to answer it. But if you also feel comfortable, I'm also perfectly fine if you unmute and speak up as well. Yeah. How should I download link 2? So you want to click one of these links. So x86 is going to be the Intel chip, and ARC is going to be the Apple chip. Yeah, one of these two. And that said download succeeded. For now, don't worry about it. I just want the files downloaded. We're going to go over installation afterwards. All right, so while that's all running, I'm going to play a short video, I think that covers some of the highlights of what is Java. So let me make sure I'm sharing sound, and I'm going to be putting chat away for now because I think it shows up as like a blue box on the screen. So for this video, I'm going to have chat off, and I'm going to play.
Chapter 2, Fundamentals, Part 1. Hello World. Java is a programming language which runs on more than 3 billion devices. It is also used to build Android apps and Minecraft. In this chapter, we will go through the fundamental concepts of Java programming. Let's begin. Hello World.java is a Java file. When executed, it prints Hello World to the console window. There is no need to understand every line of code here. Just note that system out println Hello World prints whatever is between the quotation marks out to the console window. Let's see what happens when this code is executed. Computers can't make sense of the Java code. What? That is right. Programmers can make sense of it. Computers only understand bytecode, a machine gibberish written in zeros and ones. So there has to be a way to translate the Java code to bytecode. Who does this translation? Java compiler does this job. It translates and compiles the Java code into bytecode for the computer to understand. Then, Java Virtual Machine, or JVM, executes the bytecode and outputs the result. Syntax. Let's look at some basic rules. Just like learning a foreign language, to become fluent in Java, you must learn its grammar, or its syntax. Rule number 1. Java is case sensitive.
Actually, I'm gonna pause at the syntax spot because we're actually gonna cover that in class later on. So for now, let me stop that. Let me get my shares right up again. So that was really brief, but I think there's some important things to get from here. So the first is, I want to go back to this diagram where it talked about how computers don't actually understand Java code. And what you see here is kind of a pipeline of what we write, which is called source code, and how it gets to something that the computer can run. And if you notice, there's something here called the compiler. And this is part of what we download in that JDK thing I told you about. The JDK has this compiler, which allows you to convert the code that we write into something called bytecode. And this isn't something super important in the sense that it's not something that we're going to be spending a lot of time on, but it's actually kind of one of the strengths of Java, the fact that it's a compiled language. This compiler is, you can think of it kind of like as a translator for real life languages. If I'm trying to talk to someone in France, I don't know French. So I would need a translator to turn my English into French so that the French person could understand it. Just like this, the compiler is kind of like a translator. It translates between something that we write that's kind of like English. It kind of, if you look at it, it kind of makes sense. It turns that into bytecode, which is just zeros and ones that the computer can understand. And the reason why this is important in the sense of Java is because once you take your source code and compile it, in theory, you can take that compiled code and run it on any computer that has Java installed on it. And also previously mentioned in this video is a lot of things have Java installed on them. So mobile apps, a lot of them are based in Java. So you can write Java code and it basically will run on the same way on a phone as it does on the computer. Similarly, a lot of IoT devices, smart devices might have Java installed on them. A ton of things use Java. And in theory, once you compile your code into bytecode, you can now run it on any of those devices. And that's a little bit different than something like Python, where you don't have this compile stage. And you might need something different for every machine. So that's one of the strengths of Java, but not necessarily something we're going to focus a lot on in this class. The other thing is, this is unfortunately maybe the simplest Java program, essentially. This is what we call the Hello World program, and this is a very common first program. Hopefully we'll get to this, writing out this on our own computer by the end of today's class. But like as I mentioned, and as the video said, you don't have to understand every single line of code in here. What makes Java intimidating to learn is that there's a lot of code, which is really like this line, the second line, and these braces. They don't matter too much when you're first learning. The only line that matters is really this one in the middle. And even then, you don't even have to understand what most of this means. All you have to know is what the video said. It just prints out whatever is inside these quotation marks. So it looks really intimidating at first, but we're going to break it down and hopefully it's going to be a lot nicer. So with that said, I want to first install the JDK that we downloaded onto our computer. And for this step, since I already have it installed, I don't want to show it on my computer, but maybe someone who has the JDK downloaded, that file, can someone take the screen share and we're going to look at your computer and I'm going to step through on your computer and show everyone what to do.
You mean like everything's downloaded and Eclipse is open?
No. So we're just installing the JDK right now. So I had you download the two files. We're going to be working with the first one right now.
It's like the installer?
Yeah, just the installer basically.
Rip, I already went through the whole thing.
If you went through that, that's perfectly fine. So I guess I can kind of show it on my screen. I just won't do the last step. So if you haven't already installed it, it's going to be this thing. It's going to be called JDK 18 something something. And I see the question about Eclipse in chat. We're going to get to that. But for now, I'm going to work on the JDK first. So it should be running. Let's see, maybe I'm going to get zoom out of here. All right, so I have a Windows installer and I get a pop-up, and we're just going to be stepping through this basically. You're just going to hit next. Here's where it's going to be installed. I would say just keep the defaults unless you really want it somewhere else. But generally the defaults are a safe place to put it. And then really you just hit next and it's going to start installing. And actually it's not going to really do anything for me because, yeah, actually it is going to do stuff. So it is just going to run and it's just going to install. And this should take maybe a minute or two. It's going to be pretty fast. And like I said, this JDK has the compiler as the translator. And so this is something that we have to install to program in Java. Without this, it wouldn't be able to translate your Java files into the bytecode that can be run. Okay. So that really is just the JDK installation. You just go through that wizard, you just step through it. I would stick with the default and you should be good. For Eclipse, it's going to be a little bit different between Macs and Windows. So I think for Windows, the download here is just a zip file, so a compressed folder. So when you download this, you're just going to get a zip file and you just want to unzip it somewhere. So with a zip file, I can just demonstrate with a zip file that I have. Do I have the zip folder? Yeah. So here's like an example zip folder. You're going to have something like this. You can right click extract all. You might have extract all at the top. I might have a different version of Windows than you do, but generally these two places should be the same, whatever Windows version you have. You can right click extract and generally it's going to ask you where to put it. You can put it in your downloads folder for now. You can move it later. It really is self-contained. So it's just going to make a folder and you can move that wherever you want later. So Dale said you can't use the version of this application Eclipse, and it says I need a software update. So I remember you had a Mac, is that correct? Yeah, so first I'd make sure that maybe double check the version that you downloaded. So if you downloaded the x64, I think make sure you did the first one here. Otherwise, ARM and ARC, I think. Apple chip. Let me double check, but I think it should be ARC. Yeah, I'm not too sure. You can try the other one that you didn't do, just to double check. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with Mac, unfortunately. But if the other one also says that it can't run, then we'll work through that. The first IDE. You can choose whichever one you want. This one has like some extra features, but really we're not going to be using them. And so this is a little bit more compact and less bloated. So I would say just do the first one. Even still, Eclipse is really has a lot of tools that would be useful if you're going to become your job as a software developer. It's pretty useful, but it's just students learning how to program in Java. It's really not necessary. But if you want to do the other one, it's fine as well. I just want to show. So for the people who have Windows, has anyone finished unzipping the folder? If you do, you should have something like this. Yeah, this unzipping this folder takes like, I think when I did it, it took like 5 minutes or so. It took a while. But you should have a folder like this, Deo. Okay, I'm glad it worked, Deo. Yeah, I guess it's just always gonna be this one. All right, yeah. So for me, I have a Eclipse folder. You might have the workspace, it might be created later on. I just put it in the folder where I keep my slides in. You could have this folder wherever you want. It doesn't really matter. On Mac, it probably will be slightly different. But if you're on Windows, and when you've unzipped the folder, if you go in the folder called Eclipse or whatever it's automatically called, you should have eclipse.exe, and that is gonna start it up. And so if you've finished unzipping, just double click this exe and we're gonna start working with Eclipse. Yeah, so if you're, Caden, are you on Windows or are you on Mac? Windows. So did you unzipped everything and did everything unzip? Do you see like these other things in here? Interesting. Maybe I can have you screen share really quickly just so I can debug. If you're able to share your computer screen with me. Yeah. All right. So I think, so this is still not unzipped actually. So right now you're inside the zip folder. So if you go to your I would go out one folder, don't extract this. So if you go to, click downloads, I'd right click on that and then extract all. And you're gonna get another window. The default location, you're just gonna extract it into your downloads folder. And it's probably gonna take a couple minutes. All right. Does anyone else have any issues with unzipping or installing?
I don't think mine's unzipping.
All right, do you wanna share your screen too, Shar?
Sure. So I've like opened the JDK, but when I go through all of it, like nothing happens in the downloads.
So this is the JDK. The JDK won't do anything with your downloads. That probably is fine. That looks good. So Kaden, we worked with you. Just to kind of see where everyone's at. How many people are currently waiting for things to get unzipped or uninstalled? Maybe put something in chat, or you can do Zoom reactions. Yep, I know Kaden, you're on that. So I guess we can try something else. So on Zoom, if you look at the bottom of your window, you should see a reactions thing. So maybe if you have everything working, maybe do a thumbs up reaction like I am doing right now. And Kaden, yeah, I would just replace if it's asking you to. So I see some thumbs up. I don't see thumbs up from everyone yet. Right. Owen, I didn't see a thumbs up from you. Are you waiting on things to install? Okay, I see a thumbs up now. Megan, is everything working for you? Or are you waiting? What's the status? All right, thumbs up, nice. All right, so I think most people are either done or waiting to unzip. So I think we can move forward. For the next part, I'm gonna go back to the slides really quick. We're gonna work with running Eclipse. So when you double click Eclipse, you're probably gonna see a window like this. I don't see this myself because I've already chosen the do not show this again thing. But the first thing that happens when you run Eclipse is it wants to set something called a workspace. And the workspace is just a fancy name for basically a folder. And that's where all your files are going to be placed and where Eclipse is going to look for everything. You can keep the default, that's perfectly fine. You can even change this later on. Even if you do the do not ask again, you can change it inside the application later on. So don't feel like you're going to regret anything that you choose now. It doesn't really matter. Oh, wait, I realized I wasn't sharing my screen. But okay, this is the window that you should be seeing. This kind of small window that says selected directory as a workspace. If you don't have any strong preferences, I would just say keep the defaults. Right. Right. So Kaden, I know you were, Evan and Kaden were talking in the chat. So you were saying you didn't see the exe. So I actually saw the exe when you showed me during the screen share. The only problem was that it wasn't unzipped and you need to unzip before you can actually run it. So if the unzip is still running, just let it go. And when it's done and you open up the folder, you should see it there. Yeah. But anyways, if you do have trouble later on, just keep messaging chat and we can work through it. So Eclipse, let's see if there's anything important. This is what Eclipse looks like. It's pretty, has a lot of features, has a lot of things. I think the first time you run it, you're gonna see like a welcome page, maybe on the left or the middle or on the right somewhere. You can close that out. There's probably gonna be a checkbox towards the corner that says, do not show again. You can do that. It's not gonna be important. But once you close all the initial windows, you should see something like this. There's a lot of buttons, there's a lot of windows, and we're gonna go over how to use this thing. I think the first thing I want to do is, if at any point things get messed up, you can always reset it. And the way you do that is at the top right, there's this like very small thing. I wish I could zoom in on my computer, but on the very top right, not where the X is, but just below it, there's like a button that's already selected. If you right click that and click reset perspective, it will put everything back to the default state. So if any time things go missing, things don't look right, just reset the perspective and it should fix things. Okay, and that's how do you get here. So I assume you're asking about what I'm showing on my screen. This is what happens when you start up Eclipse. So the first thing is it's going to ask a workspace. You can just click the defaults. And after that, you should see something similar to this. You might get welcome messages, tutorial message, or something like that. You can X out of those, and you should see something like this. Which file did I choose? Just really quickly, do you want to share your screen again? I'm not quite sure what where you are at right now. All right, so it doesn't show exe, but it's the third one from the bottom, the one with the Eclipse logo on it. Yeah, that's the application. So you want to double click that one. Every time you want to start up Eclipse, you can find that thing, double click it. For shortcuts, you can also do things like pin to your start or make shortcuts on your computer, anything that you want to make it easier. But yeah. So here we have this again. So just to really demonstrate, for example, if things get messed up, I'm going to close some of these windows. It's going to look a little bit weird. Like, I don't know what's going on. You can always just right click, reset perspective. Takes a couple seconds and everything goes back to normal. So Evan said, should I create a new Java project? And yes, that's pretty much the first thing that we're going to do. So first I want to note on the left is something called the package explorer. I already have some stuff, but yours is probably going to be empty. And this is kind of like your file explorer. So if you're on Mac, that's like Finders on Finder. On Windows, it's just your file explorer. This is when you selected your workspace, that's what's showing up on that left side. And the first thing that we want to do is create a new project. So on the top left, you want to click the File button, and then New and New Java Project. So Java Project is just something that contains your Java code. And we're going to make a Java project, and we're going to keep that we can use one project for the whole class. You don't have to keep making Java projects. So this project name, I'm going to call it AOE, but also maybe Summer 22. I'm just going to call it this. You can call it whatever. However, there are some restrictions. So like maybe some special symbols aren't allowed. I don't know. If you have an error message near the top, you want to address that. If you already created a new one, you don't have to create a second one, although there is something important to do. So this stuff you can keep default, but when you click to the next, so this is the first page, you want to click next, not finish. You want to deselect this create module info Java file. If you didn't select this at the beginning, you can just delete it later on. But we don't want this file. So there's a check mark. You want to uncheck it. You want to make sure it's not there. Okay, and if you didn't select that, if you don't have that, then it's fine. It's probably fine. We'll find out very quickly. Yeah, but again, you have to click next to see it. Okay. All right. If you guys don't see it, maybe it's Eclipse got slightly updated. I don't know, but then you just want to finish And on my left, I see the new project that I created. So AOE Summer 22, and by default, it creates the source folder in it. And really quickly, I just want to show you, it's really just a folder. So on my computer, my workspace is just this folder called Workspace. And literally, it just created a folder called AOE Summer 22, and it has some folders here. All of our code is going to go inside this source folder. Source, SRC is short for source. That's where all of our code will go. And so once we create the project, now we can create a Java file. The important thing to know here, though, is on Eclipse, it's not a new Java file. If you go to new, you won't see new Java file. Instead, it's called a class. So we'll get into this maybe towards the end of level 1, what classes are. But every file in Java is called a class, actually. So you can right click on the source folder. You can do file, whichever way is easier. I like right click, new class, the green C. All right, if you don't see the source folder, make sure you clicked on the project. So here there's like a drop-down arrow that you can click and it opens it up. It should hopefully make it by default. All right, awesome, yeah. So then you wanna make a new class and you have another helper window. The thing that you need to put in to finish is the name of the class. I'm gonna call mine Hello World. And I'm gonna choose this thing. So this is called method stubs. This is just code that it automatically generates for you. And so we want this thing, the public static void main string square brackets args. We're gonna go over what all this means. You're actually, if you paid attention, it's actually the same thing that was on the YouTube video. They have this thing, public static void main string square brackets args. You're gonna quickly learn Java has some really long names. So it's gonna be a little bit tiring to say everything out, but we'll do our best. So you wanna put a recap, you wanna put a name, and you wanna select this checkbox. And then you click finish. You might also wanna double check. So when I created this, sometimes if you don't click in the right spot, if you don't select the right thing, it can put the file in the wrong place. So you can also double check right here, the source folder. You wanna make sure it says whatever project you had /source, SRC. But if you did everything correctly, you should see your class inside your source folder. So does anyone have any questions up until this point? Just creating this Java file, this class. So if you don't have the public statement inside, I'm just gonna copy paste it into chat. You just paste it in. The reason why I have this is because I selected that checkbox when I was making the class. Really all that checkbox is it puts this code inside, and it's, normally you would just type this out yourself, but Eclipse, one of the tools it has is it automatically generates code for you. So you just want to paste that code in if you don't have it already. No. Does anyone else have any questions getting up until this point? You'll notice that it should automatically open up the file, the class, in the middle area of Eclipse, the big area. All right. I don't see any reactions in Zoom or any messages in chat, so I'm gonna move ahead from here. But I'll stop again very soon. Just double check. Right, so if you have this, we are now finally ready to write our first Java program. So the code that we're gonna write goes inside this public static void thingy. And really quickly, these things, I'm gonna call them curly braces. These just tell you where the code goes. So anything inside of these curly braces belongs to this really long thing right here. And so we want to put our code inside these curly braces. So anywhere inside works. Oh, you have to re-extract this thing. Right. Yeah, this is probably going to take a while. So maybe just follow along on my screen while that's running. And I will be posting slides to Google Classroom, I think. And I'll have instructions on the Google Classroom on how to do this, if you get stuck. Right, so in here, we want to put the line of code that prints hello world into our console. And so that code, if you want to type along, is system with a capital S, system, and then you want to hit the period, and things are going to start popping up for you. This is another thing that Java does, Eclipse does as an IDE. It gives you a lot of tools that are very helpful when you're programming. And this is just your autocomplete system. And what we want is out. And then you want another period, system dot out dot, and then print ln. So this is an L, and this is short for print line. And then once you have this typed out, this is all in lowercase. Everything is in lowercase except for the first S. Once you have that, you want to put parentheses. And inside the parentheses, you want to do quotation marks and whatever message you want inside the quotation marks. So here I'm going to do the classic hello world. Great question, Bo. I will be going over that. Yeah, the capitalization does matter. I will be going over what matters and what doesn't matter. If not today's class, then the beginning of tomorrow's class, next week's class, sorry. Finally, most importantly, and probably the thing that you will be forgetting most often, especially if you come from Python, is that every statement in Java, basically every line, needs a semicolon at the end of it. Yeah. So the semicolon key is right next to your L. You might not have ever used it in your normal English class, but we're going to be using it a lot in Java. So every statement needs a semicolon. And you'll notice, again, Eclipse, just like a lot of IDEs, give you a lot of hints on how to write code. So luckily, if you forget the semicolon, Eclipse tells you that. So there's two ways you can see it. On the left, there's this small red circle with an X. And if you hover over it, it tells you, hey, syntax error. Insert semicolon to complete this statement. Similarly, right at the end where it should go, there's a red underline. It's kind of hard to see, but this parenthesis is a red underline. And again, if you hover over that, it gives you the same error message, syntax error. Insert semicolon to complete block statements. So Eclipse is very smart. Most IDEs, pretty much any good IDE will have this. It will tell you ahead of time where your errors are. So you just put the semicolon, and then all the red underline, that red circle, all goes away. So it's actually not as bad as you might think. Really, you're going to start getting used to writing semicolons. All right, so once we have this code all written out, we want to run this code. And so if you remember from the video, we don't run the code directly. We first compile it, and then we run it. So here, at the top left-ish area, we have this bar of a bunch of buttons. One of them is this green play button looking thing. And you want to run that. And you might get a message like, do you want to save first? You want to click yes, you want to save. And there probably is a checkbox that says, don't show this again, or like always do this. You can select that if you wish. So once you do that, hopefully you should see whatever message you put in the parentheses, in the parentheses should show up near the bottom of your screen. So you can play around with this, you can change it around. So like, I can just say, hi class, and run it again, and they'll have a different message. So I want to take a moment here and see if it is running. All right, so Deo, I think that error is something with the module.info Java thing. So I'll have you share screen a little bit later, in just a couple of seconds. Kaden asks, how do you run it again? It's in this top bar, it's the green play button. For me, it just runs directly, but I think the first time you do it, when you hit that button, pop-up is going to show up towards the middle of your screen. It might ask you to like save the file or something like that. You want to click OK or continue. And there's also a checkbox to do that always instead of keep asking you. And then you should hopefully see something at the bottom. Cool. So Deo, do you want to share your screen and we can look at that? All right, yeah. So on the left, the package explorer, do you see below hello world.java, there's something called module info.java? You want to move your mouse to the left and up a little bit? Yeah. So do you see that? You want to just delete that file. So probably like right click and then there's a menu delete. And also at the first line of your code, it says package Java. You want to delete that line. So that if you look at your code, package Java, yeah, you want to delete that. And hopefully it should run now. Oh, not quite. So can I see that error message? JNI error has occurred. Oh, I see. So in the package explorer, again, it's kind of messed up where you have hello world.java inside of a package called Java inside your source folder. So we're just actually going to create this again. So if you right click on your source folder, new class. I can't see the pop-up. Can you reshare with your whole screen? And also, if anyone else has issues, please put it in chat and I can help step through it. All right, so yeah, in the second thing, it's doing Java. And so we actually want to do, we don't want that. Can you just like delete that entirely? Yeah, so now towards the right, it says default. That's kind of what we want. And now the checkbox public static void main, you want to check that and give it some name as well. It's like the fourth box down a little bit. Yeah, you want to give it some name. Sure. And hopefully, if you put that code inside that one and hit run, it should work. Right. Right. So we're almost at the end of class, which is fine. We got hopefully everything installed on everyone's computer. Today is just a little bit of a light day because there's no way around it. We need to install these things so we can get programming. Okay, so I just want to show a little bit more of what you can do in Java, and then I'll go over some like logistics for the class, and then we'll be done for today. So yeah, really quickly, things that matter. Capitalization does matter. So this stuff, if you change any of the capitalization, it will break. What does not matter is spacing, white space specifically. So you can put spaces here, that's fine. You can put indents, that's fine. You can mix spaces with indents, that's fine. So this is not like Python. In Python, spaces matter. In Java, spaces don't matter at all. Yeah. The only thing that matters is putting it inside the right curly braces. What I want to give is a little bit more code, just working with numbers. So in Java, variables have a type associated with them. So I want to make a number variable, and the type for that is called an int, short for integer. You probably heard of int working with Python, hopefully. In Java, we have to say it explicitly. So I want to create an int variable. I want that variable to be called x, and maybe it's going to be 7. And don't forget semicolon. And then you can do like int y equals 68. I don't know, or I'll do a smaller number, 4. And then I can do something like system.out.print line, the same thing that we had above. And instead of printing out the message hi class, I can print out x times y, for example. Again, don't forget semicolons. And if we run the code now, you'll see prints out 28. So essentially now it's not that much more exciting. I put it into chat. Oh, spacing is a little bit weird, but we can now use Java like a calculator, right? You can change these numbers. You can do plus instead of times. You can do divide, things like that. You can play around with that a little bit, but that's the extent of Java code that I'm going to go over today. Really quickly, let's see if I can show this. So, okay. I'm going to open up my file explorer. So in my workspace, you don't have to do this, but I just want to show you. So here, the source folder, I have my Java file that we were writing. And if you go into the bin folder, you have this thing called .class. Class files. This is your compiled code. So remember we installed the JDK. Remember I said Java has this compiler. This is evidence of it working. So when you take your Java code and compile it, you get this class file. And this class file is actually what's really being used when you run the code. Again, this is all taken care of for you. It's all behind the scenes, but I like pointing it out because it's kind of useful and one of the things that makes Java useful in the real world. This idea of being compiled and cross-platform support, things like that. All right, last thing is just some course logistics. So go back to my Chrome and Google Classroom. So it's a sneak peek, but we have a Google Classroom. I'm not sure if everyone is in it. No, I didn't check. It looks like not everyone is. So we have Google Classroom, and you're going to need to enroll in this class. The code has been provided to you in the emails. Your parents should have it, but I'll also put it into chat, and I'll put the code into chat. Yeah, so Google Classroom is where we're going to be posting resources, things like that. And someone asked about recordings earlier. Classes are recorded. Ms. He can give them out to you if you ask. You're gonna have to ask for those. In terms of contacting me, my email is, I'll put it into chat. that's probably the easiest way to reach me. So if you have any questions, I know today we did setup, so if you got behind on setup or something, or in the future, if you have a question about what we did in class, or we're gonna have homework later on, if you have questions about homework, feel free to send an email to me at that address, and I'll have it in a couple places. So if you don't get it today, I'll make sure you guys have it later on. Yeah, and a little bit about homework. This week, I don't have any homework for you guys, but starting next week, we just have really short, small assignments that are gonna be due before the next class. So basically you have a week to work on it. It really should take maybe 30 minutes. They're usually really small, but you're off the hook for this week. Right. So I know I'm probably at time or over time. So that's all I had for today. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm glad we got through the installation. This is going to be the most boring class probably. So it should be a lot more exciting moving forward, but we made it through. All right. So if you have any questions now, I'll be sticking around a little bit to answer any questions. If not, feel free to leave the Zoom call and I'll see you next week, same time.